This is Willpower.
Okay, we're here. Willpower podcast with a dear friend, Angela Gargano. I'm so glad she's here. We used to live in the same apartment complex, but now I'm trying to talk her into moving here. I kind of want to move here, I'm not going to lie. So nice to have you on the show.
I'm so pumped to be here.
Yeah, so you have had such an exciting history at such a young age, honestly, and I want you to talk to us a little bit about where your mission was born out of, right? This origin story that you have from, television to sports and the ways you're learning to win.
It's been quite the journey. I feel like it's really interesting because people always see the ninja warrior, all those pieces, but where it really started was I was actually a biochemist. I think you knew this, right? Yeah. I was a biochemist and I was actually working in the lab, working a 12-hour overnight shift. And while I was doing that, I was really diving into personal development, really learning more about what I wanted to do with my body and athletically, because after college, I had, college gymnastics. I didn't really know who I was, or I didn't realize you're just going to hop into the workplace and that was it. So I was searching for this next thing. And that led me to getting into fitness competitions. So that's like the fitness competitions where you're like flipping around on the stage and doing all these cool things. And then that accidentally led me into American Ninja Warrior, which was wild.
You say accidentally.
It was completely accidental.
People are like, this is my number one goal is to be on the show.
Yeah, I mean, that was my friend. My friend was like obsessed with it. I had never watched it before, but while we were helping make her submission video to get on the show, the videographer was like, you were a gymnast, you should try out for this. And I was like, I'm not going to try out for this. Like, I don't even know what this is. I don't even watch it. He convinced me. Like, he took so much time to convince me to be like, let's just make a quick video. We made one and I wound up getting up on the show and I had 2 weeks to learn how to ninja. I had no idea how to ninja or what.
Like, was your friend like, I love you, and also I love you?
I know. I think probably like a mix of both. Yeah, it was probably a little bit resentful. She was actually a mentor at the time, so I mean, it was probably this weird in between of like, wait, I'm excited for you, but also like I didn't get on, so like this is kind of weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, had to learn how to ninja. Got onto the show. 2 weeks later, fell in love with it. Was obsessed with it. And then I decided after that, then it was like, okay, I'm all in. I want to be a top female. I'm seeing all these guys get through it. Like, how can I come back and just destroy this course?
Yeah.
But then after that, I actually got rejected getting on the show twice. So rejected, kept showing up because what I realized was the video submission was, it's a reality TV show. So you could be really, really strong, but if you don't have a story that they want to show on the TV show, you're probably not going to get on. So once I realized that, I was able to put in the submission video where I got on for season 10, which is I quit the biochemistry job and I opened up my own gym. So I'm sure it was a cool story.
Yeah.
And I actually got on the cover of Women's Health magazine for this competition, which is a whole thing. And I always put it in my video, and I had a boyfriend for like a second, which I should have never put in the video. My mom had told me that, like, don't ever put like your boyfriend
like evergreen, a man who's you're dating.
Yeah,
you really know that he's around for the long haul.
Or in my head, I'm like, everybody's around forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, put that in, got on the show, and this time I get there, I am ripping through the course. Like, I was so confident. I had done all the things. I'd shown up when it was hard, all those different pieces, and then all I had to do was get through one obstacle to be a top female. And I had no doubt in my mind, by the way, that I was going to do this. I get on this last obstacle, I'm swinging through it, and as soon as I dismount, I land and I just collapse to the ground. Completely black out. I'm sitting there holding onto my leg, and I had to get carried off the course because I tore my ACL right there in front of everybody. So it's definitely been quite the adventure and quite the journey, especially when you put everything into something and then that's how it turns out.
It's like the last moment and you're like, wait, what? Wait, I see it slipping away.
You're like, wait, I'm so confused. I did everything that I was supposed to do. Like, I kept showing up when it was hard. I showed it to my practices. I sacrificed. I did all these pieces. But then right in an instant, that's it.
And then how did you feel like after that? Because of course that has to wear off for a moment and the truth has to really settle in. And then like, what's the frame of reference that you have going forward from there?
I think what's really tough about this too is, right, I think especially as a strong athlete, or maybe people are watching this who are also strong leaders, right? We want to come off really strong after something like that. So we show up with that smile on our face. We pretend like everything is totally fine. But then in silence, when I was at home, I was a mess. I was a mess. I was like, who am I? I was definitely having thoughts of like, I don't want to live anymore. I'm not going to be able to get through this because I couldn't walk at that point.
Yeah.
I couldn't do, it just felt so horrible, again, to do everything right. And it's like, why couldn't I just have gotten through? Like, I didn't understand.
Yeah.
So I sat in a really dark place for a while
Yeah.
after that. But that's something that I feel like people maybe didn't see, right? Because who's going to
And I think it's like also like to take a moment to just put a pin in that moment too, which is I was either reading one of your emails, she's amazing emails, so you have to get on her email list, reading one of your emails or watching a snippet of something where I think it was in something you wrote, where you wrote about saying, oh, I had these dark thoughts and I felt like, do I want to be here anymore? And the notion for me is like, I always look at you and all the time that I've known you, and I know you know what I'm already going to say, but it's like, here's like Angela, she's like pulling through and doing all the things. And I knew that you had that injury and I knew the course of a lot of your life and was like, what? Like not in a million years would I ever feel like I know we can all kind of loosely feel like, oh, I'm at the edge of a cliff and then, whoa, wouldn't it be scary to jump? But a very different thing when you're in a super dark place and you're like, I didn't in the last year or two, and you know this about me because we've talked about this, I didn't ever say to people until I really had to say to people, I'm having like suicidal ideation. And it's very scary to say because you think, I don't want to be crying wolf or have people like judge me as being dramatic or all these other things that how silly that they come to our mind. But instead of asking for help or saying, hey, I need more therapy or I want some more friendship or connection or whatever the things are. So I'm saying this and putting a pin in it because it's like if you are having thoughts like that when there's big transition in your life, and I know there's big transition in mine, which was born a lot of that and DHEA, which is also contributing. But those pieces, I think, just to like make a plea to everyone who's listening and watching to say, we are all in places where we can get to that level of darkness, and to really speaking your truth and asking for help is
yeah, I think it's really, and I think it's really hard. Like, again, if you're like a leader or in like a high position, or again, I was seen as the girl who owned the gym, was on American Ninja Warrior. Oh, you're on these covers, all these things. It's really hard for you to be like, I don't want to tell people, like you said, that I feel this way. I don't want them to look at me differently.
Yeah.
Or like that, like what you said, like a judgment or think like you've got all these other things, but it's like you get sometimes to that point where it is so lonely because you feel like you can't tell anybody how you were feeling.
Yeah.
I didn't really have anybody to lean on to really tell them about those thoughts, or at that time even feel comfortable. Like, I'm sure there's people who would probably listen to my thoughts, but I didn't feel comfortable enough to do that because I wanted to be like, I'm the strong person. So yeah, I mean, definitely really tough. I am so lucky because there's always those people in your life who could see right through you. Yeah. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
And there was someone, an amazing, she was an older woman. She was working at my gym, and she came up to me and she's like, Angela, she's like, I know you're not okay. And she's like, I know you haven't been okay for a while. Because when I tell my story, everyone thinks like, okay, cool, rock bottom, she's out of it. That's not the time frame for that.
Yeah.
Like I was in that for a while, right? Yeah. And she said, listen, it's cool that you feel that way. And I was like, permission?
Yeah.
Permission to feel horrible and to feel like sad and to name it and to be human. Yeah, to be human and not superhuman. And she said, but I don't want you to get stuck there. Yeah. And there was something about her saying that. And it had to be, I think, at that time because sometimes people might tell you that maybe right away and you're like not ready to really hear that or receive that. And she said that to me. And then after that, I was like, okay, you're right. Like, I can't get stuck here. But she gave me that permission I needed. That it was okay. That
grace, right?
Some grace. Like you are, like you said, you are human. You're going to have moments where you want to be strong, but you're not feeling so strong. And once you name it and you actually put a name to it and you tell someone about it or you write it on a piece of paper, the power starts to go away. It loses its power. Yeah. It truly does.
Yeah.
But when it's stuck inside you,
totally.
Ooh, it's like, it's not going to go away. It's going to keep staying in there. You're going to keep ruminating. You're going to keep telling these stories. Your brain is going to give you all these stories of fear as to why you're not good enough and why you need to stay exactly where you are, stuck in the dark so nobody can see you. So really powerful to be surrounded by people like that. And again, a lot of times people will see right through you, but
thank goodness.
Thank goodness. And now I feel really grateful because I feel like I really do have a community where I could tell them anything. Like I can tell them my crazy talks and like, I'm just going to write a paragraph out to you. You don't even need to read it or get back to me. I'm just going to
know that it's there.
I'm going to click send. So luckily I have that now. But again, I think a lot of people, like we're saying, maybe people listening to this podcast, like they might have had those thoughts before. Maybe and it doesn't need to be the extreme of like suicidal, right? That was extreme for me, but it could be any thought. It could be a moment where something just really, one little thing during the day takes you off and you're trying to stay stuck in like, whatever, just name it. Name it.
Yeah. And I think that that's what you're talking about, this like the power, like letting it lose power by naming it, owning it, writing it even.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting how the neurochemistry of the brain is because it's hardwired for our primordial brain is hardwired to be like, I want to survive. It's always going to look for like, what are the negative outcomes that could happen? And there's a part of understanding in our life, right? That's like that our brain is doing that. So like if our brain is looking for the negative outcomes, we're going to always have to be doing something that's working directionally to balance that out.
For sure.
Yeah. And so you talk about a lot of those kinds of things in
my keynote.
in your keynote. Yeah.
My keynote. I also have a podcast. What if it all goes right? That's the name of it. Because what really helped me personally get out of it after she said that was I sat down in my journal and I started to write, what if it all goes right? And what does that even look like? And it was wild because for the first time I sat down to write that out and I didn't have a clear vision. So I'm all mad and frustrated as to where I was, but I didn't even know where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
And I also, my mind couldn't get to the place to be like, what if this turns out better than you imagined? What if it's a positive? What if it's positive? And you get like maybe annoyed at some people who are like super positive about things all the time. But it's so important because once you start writing that out as to what are the possibilities, that actually starts to happen.
Yeah.
Which is pretty wild. So the first time I wrote that out, no idea really. I was sitting there, I'm like, what if it goes right? I'm like, I don't know. I was like, I get up and I walk or something. And then it turned into like, what if I have an epic comeback? Like, what if I take this time to use it and I create this strong foundation that's going to help me for the rest of my life? Mm-hmm. And every day I started to feel it more. That was really important, like to really feel what if it all goes right looks like in my body. It wasn't just like writing it down. Then it was what you were seeing. It was all the senses that you were able to put when you're writing it out over and over again. And I feel like it was such a powerful piece. So that's really why my keynote, my podcast, it's all based on that saying, because I still write that every single day. Mm-hmm. Like no matter what I do, I write that out. There's something about that allowed me to feel like I had control again, because I felt super out of control before that.
Yeah. And just from everything that happened, it's like it was a natural occurrence that you would feel out of control. And then you're like slowly bringing it back and bringing it back.
Yeah.
And I also want to say or shout out the fact that this was happening after the magazine cover shoot, or does the magazine cover happen after this? So
I had I was on 2 fitness covers before Ninja Warrior. Yeah. One of them was Women's Health Magazine, Next Fitness Star. That was another thing someone just kept telling me to submit to, and I'm like, I'm not gonna get on this. I'm like, I'm a little girl from Rhode Island. I don't have anything to give. And I somehow won that. So I was on the cover with 5 other females, and they brought us around the world and they did a whole competition. It was a whole thing. And I was also on the cover of Rhode Island Magazine. But yeah, the funny part is before all of this, before I tore my ACL, I was sending out emails to oxygenmagazine.com because I wanted to be another fitness girl on the cover, because I knew a lot of people in the fitness space who were getting these covers, and I'm like, I want that cover. So I sent out a photoshopped picture of me that I put on the cover to everybody on the website. I went found every email I could find. I was doing like accounting at oxygenmagazine.com. I'm like, how can I get this to somebody that's going to see it? And do you think anyone got back to me? Then?
Not for a while.
No. No. Everyone's always like, yeah, of course they got back to me. I'm like, no, they didn't. They didn't message. They're like, who's this girl? Like photoshopping herself on the cover, being like, put me in the magazine. So I followed up every single month. And then finally, maybe like 6 months later, the editor-in-chief gets back to me and she says, hey, I see that you're living in Rhode Island. I'm actually doing a photo shoot in a church basement in Connecticut. Are you available? I'm like, of course I'm available. Like, I don't care. I'll make it work. So I get there, I do all these, wrist exercises. I became really close to the editor-in-chief, and I realized that she just, man, those magazines, like you think sometimes they're like these big buildings and stuff. It's just like literally this mom running this magazine remotely, trying to figure it all out. So I just started helping with her. I honestly put the whole idea of ever getting a cover like out of my brain. And then that was
also, it's a small win, because you're like, I was doing some wrist exercises. I was showing
for
people
sure
featured in the magazine. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that was 2016, or I believe that was. And then finally, it wasn't until after everything happened with my ACL, 2023, I got a text message being like, hey, like we have an opportunity for you to be on the cover. But
amazing.
it was so powerful because before I just wanted to be a girl on the fitness cover who was like a hot girl with abs on the fitness cover. Whereas this magazine was my comeback story. This was something that was going to really help people. So I was mad at the time that I wasn't like getting it. But then so much more later on, I realized that I wasn't supposed to get it then.
Yeah.
I needed to have this life experience so that I wasn't just another hot girl on the cover.
This whole mission that you're on, which is like, what if it all goes right? What if the timing is impeccable actually from the universe?
For
not, even though we're, chomping at the bit and wanting it and being impatient. And then look at all the years of like, that's connection that you have and grit that you have. And I think all of this speaks to you being a good manifester.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, what's interesting about manifesting that, and this is what I thought was really interesting. For the longest time, I was obsessed with it on my vision board. I was like staring at it every day. I was like, I'm going to get that cover. And then I let go of it the one year.
Yeah.
I don't even think I put it on the cover. I don't think I put it on my vision board that year. I was like, whatever. I was like, it's fine. But when I let go, which became the trust, a lot of times people were saying that manifesting, you think sometimes manifesting is like, I'm going to stare at it every day and it's going to happen. But manifesting is actually when you trust so much that it's going to happen, it's inevitable that you can
probably
let
have
go.
to stare at it every day for like 90 days before you're like, okay, I'm actually feeling like this is real. I can just be with it and then it will happen.
I even hear that with friends and their partners. This has happened multiple times with my friends. They had written a list of what they wanted in their partner, completely out, obsessed with it. They put it underneath their bed so they couldn't actually read it every day. And they just trusted.
Yeah.
And then one of my friends just got married. She showed her now husband the list and he had everything on the list.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty
I
wild.
interviewed a guy named Dean Hall, who's a therapist and also cancer, like all these things, and swam the Willamette River, like 121 miles consecutive. And then like came out of the water and he had lymphoma and leukemia. When he came out of the water, the doctors were like, your leukemia is gone. Like it was like for the lymphoma, one of them was gone.
Yeah.
And we're like, and then of course he needed to work on the other a bit, but he's cold water swimming and talks about athletics as like wild cure. But he and I have had that conversation a number of times, and he's done that with so many of his clients/patients, which is like, hey, what do you want? And he does a lot of work with like divorce or loss. He had lost his wife. His wife passed away, his first wife. So he's like, this list thing that he did to meet his woman. Then he was like, let me instill this in my practice. And then he has these people do it. And it's just about like being with the list after they've gotten so rooted in actually saying what they want, which goes, and then the person shows up, right? And then, like what you were talking about earlier, that you're like, I was in a tough place. And then I thought, well, what do I want? Do I really know what I want? And I'm even feeling that in my life right now, that I like know the things sort of I want, but that doesn't really, you have to, Emily Fletcher, like my meditation,
I love her.
She's like, you have to place the order with the cosmic waitress at the diner in the restaurant to get your order from the universe. So,
and then I love when she says like, and you're not sitting there being like, when are you coming out with my food? Because you know the food's gonna come.
You do.
At some point. And it's the same thing.
Yeah, that's the important part that I always forget, is I'm busy white knuckling it over in the corner.
For sure. And sometimes too, I mean, with what if it all goes right, what if it's something you don't even know yet? Like, what if it's better than you imagined, right? I was just listening to a podcast that was talking about like, maybe your what if it all goes right is like a blue door and a green door. And you're like, okay, cool, it's gonna be one of those doors. But what if it all goes right is actually a pink door?
Yeah.
That you didn't even see.
Yeah.
You didn't even see it was there. You didn't even know that was even a possibility. But you just, again, trusted. But you had some kind of sense of where you would love to go. But a lot of times I definitely that stuff in my life was better than I could have imagined, honestly. I honestly, I had to rewatch. It's so funny. I had to rewatch the clip of me coming back the other day, and every time I watch it, I'm crying.
Wow. It's like I was sitting there, you on the show.
I had the clip of my comeback, and I'm like making a video for it right now, and I rewatched the whole thing, and you could just see it on my face. Like I was just so trusting in every landing. Like I was just crying. Like,
and also after what had happened the first time, right? Which is the piece. It's like, how do you get your mindset to have, there is a risk there, and you know that it's there because you went through everything you went through. So there's like a notion of it. And like, so what was the way that you navigated being like, okay, 1% of me knows that this thing can happen, and the rest of me needs to be just it, like with a little bit of like, I understand where I have to have some caution for sure. And everything else is going to work out perfectly. So how do you hold those in the container at the same time?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Because I remember right before I went, I like took a deep breath. I was like sprinting, I sprint in the back before I go because it gets out my energy. And I just like took a deep breath in, and I like looked up at the sky, and I was like, I don't even care. And I think that was a true let go, because I had done everything I needed to do. I showed up consistently. I had But I built a strong foundation for my body, which is something I didn't have before. I thought that was really interesting. I was throwing a lot of big moves the year prior when I tore my ACL and like big things and big this. And I was neglecting all the little things, not only in my body, but in my mindset and all different pieces.
All of those things.
Oh my goodness, all the things. I remember my physical therapist, the one day, he's like, okay, we're going to work on your core. And I'm like, why are we working on my core? My knee is messed up. And he was like, because you have a weak foundation. And I was like, I have a 6-pack.
And then you're like, excuse me.
I was like, excuse me.
I don't see you on any.
Do you see my 6-pack? And then he's putting me through these foundational movements and I can't do them. I'm quivering, I'm shaking. And I'm like, whoa. I was like, I was neglecting a lot of these things that are really important because we think that a lot of times it's the big obstacles and the big things that matter, but it's the little things that matter 10 times more. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to, though, coming back to trusting, right? Because getting back on the course, I had to trust, like you said, every landing, because that's the scary part.
Yeah.
And I think what really helped me build up to that again was I started really small, because someone asked me the other day, like, how do you do that? Like, how do you come back after being super fearful? And like, what if I do that again? Like, type of thing. I'm like, you can't just like jump right back into it. So for me, the dismount was a horizontal like dismount, right? Mm-hmm. So I trained up to it. I did like a little, like I started with just like jumping on the ground, and then I made it a little higher and a little higher. So if you can take that in a sense for yourself or whatever that thing is, how can you just do like 1% to get yourself confident and then like 2%? Like, you're not going to be 100% confident right away after doing something.
No, but they're stepping up. Yeah,
for sure. Like,
also
small steps.
I'm so confident at like 6 inches off the ground is a good place to.
Yeah, like let's just go like really small, but like instead of trying to go from 0 to 100 with anything that you're doing, how can you go from 0 to just 1%? And then by taking action, that's then how you build the confidence. You're not going to build confidence by not doing anything. And the fear might always still be back there, like a little bit, right? Yeah. But then it's like trusting yourself to be like, no, I trained this repetitively and I did everything I needed to do in order to build this up. And then you really start to relearn to trust yourself.
Yeah. And you knew the second time going that you're like, I've added so much more foundational work. So there's like something else in there, right? Like
there was some extra confidence that I had in there, which is, and I did it. If you watch the show, I took the brace off like 11 months later. I didn't do it with the brace on. I was like, I don't want a crutch.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure my PT was like,
probably. And also it's like interesting probably to see the way that the fans responded to, because it's like such an underdog comeback kid story, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And you have that in your mind. Like, I'm sure you have to release all expectations to being like, I want this to be the way it goes. And then you have to let that go. But the level of emotionality, like how did that just feel when you like got to the end and were like, this is where the big W happens?
I mean, it was insane. Again, when I rewatch it, you can just see it on my face when I was, again, I'm like, oh, I can bring myself back to that moment right now, which is so wild.
Yeah.
There was something that just felt so like, wow, I did it.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit. Like,
yeah.
I made it back here. Like, yeah. I'm doing this thing right now.
So heartfelt.
And also, like I said, I think I also let go. I didn't really care if I finished it when I got back.
Yeah.
Like, I looked up and
let me just not tear my ACL again.
Yeah, basically. No, I was just like, I already made it. Like, I got back to that starting line. I'm like, I won. I don't really care. And you could tell even when I like get to the end for both nights, I made it to finals, but like I didn't make it all the way through. I was in the water and I wasn't crying because I was in the water. I was like pumped.
Yeah.
I was like, let's go. Like, I did this thing, you know? So it really didn't matter at that point. And it was just the fact that I was able to get through such dark times, like mentally, physically, and just show up again, even when it was hard to show up. It was hard to just get up out of bed for the longest time, you know?
So let's I want to keep that theme, but I want to talk a little bit about what's the power of now, what's going on now. And I was asking you before we started recording, what's lighting you up? Because I always want to talk about the relevancy of things that are happening that are lighting you up. And I know that you and I are both going through lots of like transition in life, in business, and I'd like to say it's leveling up. I want to continue to believe that fully, like just into the more richness and fullness of our own being, like who we were meant to be
for sure.
On this planet. What are the transitions that are going through now, that the lessons you earned and learned earlier, that you're like, let me apply this to myself.
And it's so interesting because like since my keynote's called What If It All Goes Right, when I'm going through stuff, I'm like, okay, I gotta use my
mantra.
I gotta use my mantra like when I'm going through it. Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting, right? You have those moments, like an ACL moment, like I like to call it for people. And every single one of you listening here has had an ACL moment or some kind of moment like this. And then you kind of are hoping like, that's it. Like, I'm done. Right? Thanks. Until you realize that you're going to have multiple of those over and over again, whether they be big or small. And for me, right now, we had talked about this, I have felt such an evolution I went from biochemist, big shift, to owning my own gym. Then the other transition from that was shutting down the gym, going to New York City, trying to make it. And then it's New York City to having this like online business and presence where I've helped thousands of women get their pull up, and I've been known as that face for that, right?
Yeah.
And as I've been evolving more, and as I was teaching the pull up, I'd realized that, wow, all the women I'm helping get their pull up, to me, I don't even care about the skill. Like the skill, obviously I'm going to get your pull up, but it's like the mindset from what they were feeling when they did something that they thought was impossible.
Yeah.
That's what I liked. And that's what I was like really feeling drawn to. And I've been for months saying to myself, okay, like I can't do all my things for this pull-up program. And I was definitely feeling misaligned with it. And I'm sure you've been there too. When you're feeling misaligned with something, like the universe is like not going to let it work. Like no matter what you do, no matter what you do. So I'm doing all the stuff, all the business stuff behind the computer, whatever. And then I finally said to myself the other day, you know what? It's time to let it go. Not fully, we talked about, right? Just make it look a little bit different.
Yeah.
And now I've been leaning into where I've been seeing that I'm making the biggest impact, which is when I'm on those keynote stages.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about, like, that was all online. There's something about being on a stage and looking deeply into these people's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I'm up there, it's not about me. Like, it's not about me. I'm like looking into their eyes and I'm seeing like, wow, like I'm tears in that person's eyes. Wow, they're going to make a change in their life. Mm-hmm. And so I've really been leaning into that, but it's been a really hard transition because it was like, okay, in order for me to do this, I need to actually trust and go all in.
Yeah.
So that means like pretty much shutting off most of the stuff I was doing for sales for my pull-up program, which means like, I don't know, like when my next paycheck is coming or what's going to happen or like the uncertainty behind that. Welcome to entrepreneurship. Yeah. You're like, oh my goodness. Yeah. And then realizing all the other pieces of that, which is like the back end to run that business was so expensive and all these pieces. So a little bit having that moment of like, I kind of feel like a failure with it, but also I'm noticing like it was misaligned. Like it wasn't feeling aligned. Yeah. Whereas when I'm speaking on stages, it does. So my uncertainty, my in-between is like, okay, I'm going to make this work. Like I have to make this work. Like I have no choice.
And you have so much to offer just from your story and from all the things that you've done in the pull-up program and all the women that you've helped and the people that you're seeing positively affecting change with them.
For sure.
This is like sometimes how I get about the ice bath. I'm like making some change and people having this self-actualization. First the realization and then the actualization, right? And I think there's something about you that I've always seen that's like getting people to not just have the realization, but the actualization of like putting it in their life.
For sure.
And yeah, there's not, I want to reiterate and love that you say the shout out of like, there's nothing that takes the place of really being in a room with people or a person, or I don't care if we can call it a keynote or it could be like a corporate presentation to 20 executive leaders.
For
it's
sure.
like, how do we make this actualization piece happen? And that's so
they're needing it now more than ever. Like we are so lucky to live in Austin where we do live. I mean, entrepreneurship is not easy. Let's be real here. Yeah. But we live in a world right now, me and you in Austin, where there is so much possibility. Like you see the possibility of the world and what you can do. And then when I'm in these rooms with leaders and execs and I want to say like pretty much more in the real world than I feel like we maybe potentially are, and showing them that possibility. And like you said, giving them something to actually take action so that they can do something for themselves, like personal life, whatever it might be. And then that will go off into their teams. That will go off into their life, right? Yeah. So I'm having this calling and I kept seeing it, believe it or not. I think I told you this. I kept seeing it in my breathwork before I actually made these decisions. This was a full,
up. I'm on a stage.
I think it was 2 years. Yeah. Full 2 years. I was doing breathwork like once or twice a week, deep breathwork. And I just kept seeing these visions of me being on a stage. I didn't know why. There was no reason why. I have no idea. And there was a picture of me with my arms out, like spinning around. And it was like, I think I didn't realize what that meant then, but it was like, okay, joy. And then like alignment, I think. And then the stage is like, this is where your impact's going to be. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't listen to it for a while until finally the universe is like, you're going to listen now. Like,
yeah.
It's time to do this.
It's a special way of doing that.
For sure. And it's great though, because in the middle of doing it, while I'm like doing all the like the outreach and stuff to get on more stages and let people know that like I'm not just doing fitness and wellness, like I'm going on stages. I feel like it's just been really important for me to share all the pieces like I'm going through uncertainty and change right now as well with you. Like I'm in it with you. Mm-hmm. I'm not coming up here being like, I got it all figured out. Like I'm awesome. And I think having that authentic voice from somebody, especially I come up with like energy and authentic, like I'm being authentic right there with you. I'm like, I'm in uncertainty and with you right now, everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're going to do it together. And by them being like, wow, she gets it. That's what I feel like is really helpful right now. Instead of people just adding you and being like, here's your framework. This is how you're going to get out of it. It's like, no, I'm going to tell you what I've done to get out of it, but I'm in it right now and I'm still figuring it out and we're going to do it together.
I know that there's times in my life, especially working in a corporate job, where I showed up and I was like, here's the presentation, because this is the presentation I'm supposed to give, as opposed to like where I want to stand and be in it more, which is just like, I'm going to be more vulnerable with you. And then there's more connection with us.
For sure.
Right. And this is like, this even circles back to people in their own communities being more vulnerable, because it creates more connection, creates more pathway for, I think, powerful change, but also like powerful choices like you're making to say, okay, there's programs that I have that are great. They're not going anywhere, but they're just going to look feel a little different, so that I can like stand up and speak my calling, which is so cool.
I think that when we just talked about vulnerability too, I think again, as leaders or people who maybe, again, this could be you in that higher up position or whatever it might be, you might be nervous to be vulnerable because maybe you think that you don't want to like trauma dump people and be like, like all the things. Yeah. But I think that vulnerability is what sets good leaders apart. Like, let's be a little bit vulnerable.
Yeah.
And then again, work on these things together and bring like each other up. I think that's something that's really important. But again, I think sometimes maybe we've been told, like, I don't know if we've been told or how it came up in our lives. Like, no, don't be vulnerable.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, now we're being vulnerable.
I had my upbringing in the corporate world with like lots of male figures. So for me, I felt like there was some energetic, that like alpha energy, male energy, whatever you want to call it, the doing energy versus like being energy that really, that shaped me so much. And I had to sort of disarm myself from that to get there. And then I had to go through crisis to actually be like, okay, I'm going to talk about it because I have nothing else I can say before I clear this, you know?
And I think that is what, I think maybe you read my newsletter about this that I wrote last week, but that's where like burnout happens, where the overwhelm, like all those different pieces happen because just like you were saying, you think I need to do, take all these actions. And sometimes you actually need to take a breath, do less, like you said, be more. And that's when like the solutions and things like that start to arise. But we try and like hold on to like all these things and like, okay, cool. Like I need to do, or maybe you're not feeling great and you're feeling burnt out. And then you're like, cool, I'm going to do this 20 bazillion step routine. And then that's overwhelming because that's a lot. And then you can't do that. And then instead of maybe you just need to take a breath and like go for a walk and take a breath and share with a friend how you're feeling. You know what I mean? Yeah.
What I really am also loving is I've been seeing you go to do some of your keynotes and presenting and you on the road on the way and you in the car on the way. And this is the thing like that comes, I think, from your background in training so well in fitness, which is like the remembrance that it's like work your plan, like plan your work your plan, and then like let it go and get on stage, because you're always rehearsing the talk and improving upon it and shifting the way you're speaking and getting it so not just in your mind as like a, rote memorization, but it's like in your body, the way I see you're like up in front of a hotel with TV, like in your room, just be like speaking like it's a room of 1,000 people. And it's beautiful to see that. And I think, do you feel like that comes from like mirroring fitness, and how do you feel like that helps you show up even better?
For sure. It's so funny. I can see where each step of my life has led to being on this keynote stage, which I would have never thought before. Like you told me like later on, like when I was doing the fitness competitions, I had that routine I had to rehearse, and we had to do the walking in the heels and type of thing. And I remember we had to do it in front of the mirror, and that's what my coach would say, rehearse it all out. Like everybody's there right now. Mm-hmm. And I'd be like, but nobody's here. Like nobody's standing here. So I had to rehearse that, right? Then I had college gymnastics, performance-based, right? Then you've got Ninja Warrior, same thing. Like you had to practice and mimic like you were doing it, and you had to pretend like you were there and have that feeling. And I think that's really important. And I think that it's also important when I got up is to have that middle ground of like, okay, I put all the practice in, but also like we talked about, like, how can you let go a little bit? Like let go of control. You know what you're doing. You've done it like millions of times. Yeah. And I think what helps too with the performance, and this also helped when I had other performances before, is I really try and read the audience too. So if I'm seeing something that resonates, like while I do have my stuff scripted out, it's storytelling. And I like to go to a lot of these conferences and things. I listen to a lot of the panels. I take a lot of notes, and I bring exactly what they're feeling into it. Storytelling, so they can really get like into the depths of it. But you have to practice. It's not like keynote speaking is not like you could just get up there and talk. I really feel like it's about storytelling. It's about that practice. And like you said, getting into your body. Like, and when you memorize something, sometimes you can tell it gets a little robotic. But when you're feeling it and you're like, oh, I'm in this. I'm like, when I tell the stories, like I'm there. Like I am in my head. I'm like, okay, what do I see? How can I get them to feel and see exactly what I see? So yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love performing. I knew that. I'm like, this makes so much sense that I'm doing this now.
It's like no shame on anyone, but also like the fly in, fly out speakers. I'm always like, they don't, or we don't get a chance to be as present. But if you're like in the room to feel the feelings rise and fall, or to see, like, quite frankly, there's times when I'm like, oh, these two speakers have talked all about this to death, like ad nauseum, like, and that's great. But let me take the part of my presentation that correlates to, I just had this happen with like a nervous system thing. And two people before me just talked about nervous system science, like till they were blue in the face and intelligently. But I was like, let me take out this like 5-10 minutes of my talk, because like the last thing they want to hear is like a reiteration of that. And let me see if I can get them, we'll do some breath work for 10 minutes or get them in their bodies or make that change. And so like you going and listening and being woven into the vibe and the flow is like, that's ever so important. I think also for people who are nervous about speaking, because I bet some people are listening to you being like, how does she get up and even speak? I can't even give it to
I always thought that everyone just liked it. I was like, oh, I'm a toast
at Christmas.
Yeah.
You know? And so, yeah, like what a beautiful way for you to say, okay, I'm sitting in the energy of the space. And then you can speak to it, climb up on it, and be like the icing for the whole.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, like when you're doing the speaking stuff, you are not, again, you're there to tell your story, but you're there for the people. Yeah. Like, who are you there to help? Like, be with them, like sit in the audience, like talk to everybody, like get a sense of exactly where they're at. That is so important. And I think, again, like you said, the fly in, fly out speakers, that can be like, it's not authentic.
Like, I know they're fancy and they're
for sure. You're all fancy. I get it. But when you're sitting, I mean, and I like to bring to some of those conversations, like I said, to the stage, but just being there with them, asking them what they need. I love sitting I was at a manufacturing association the other day, and I was just listening to the panel and the things that they were stuck on and things they really needed. Yeah. And it was really helpful. And I took a ton of notes and was able to like reiterate that and see what I can do to help them.
Right. Specifics.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit, there's so many female listeners on this podcast I told you about, and I know that this happens with all humans, but a little bit about the overcoming, or maybe some like actualization components, or a few insights and things that you might say to people in the early stages of like, hey, I'm handling negative self-talk. Because if anyone's listening to this right now, whether you're sitting in a driveway or you're watching this on YouTube, we all have negative self-talk. We all have this sabotaging part of us. We all have this, like the inner saboteur, RuPaul would call it. And this part of us that's like second guessing a lot of the moves that we make, or thinking, I can't do this because. And so are there things that you tell people when you run into them, or just initially, that are like, here's some ways to start to figure your way out of that?
Yeah, I think it's really tough, because I think that like everyone has, depending on what it is, like your own time frame of like how you overcome those things. But I think what's really important is first, let awareness around it. Like, are you aware that you're having those thoughts? Like, so some people aren't even aware that they're having those thoughts. They just think that's normal. So gaining that awareness to like what your brain is telling you. And then this is my favorite thing to do. It's your brain is going to tell you those things because it wants to keep you safe. It's not trying to, it's trying to keep you right where you are. And it's going to make up stories. And the one thing I heard one day, it was saying that the fear you have, they're stories. It's not true. Most of the time, right? Yeah. It's not true. So you can ask it, literally talk to it, have a conversation with it. Like, is that true? And then you start to be like, well, like, when you start to write it out, sometimes you're like, I guess that's not really true. Okay, cool. Let's say we got rid of those thoughts for a second. Like, what would that look like for you? And then you're like, oh, that would be pretty awesome. And you're like, okay, cool. So how can we get ourselves to say, hey, I recognize it there. I see you. I get it. Cool. Thanks for trying to keep me safe. But without these thoughts, I'm going to feel this way, and I'm going to try and lean on that. And it doesn't happen overnight. This is a practice. It's just like a sport. Like, you have to practice over and over again. But I think it really starts with that awareness of it, really understanding the awareness of it, and then starting to like have a conversation with it. And again, whether that be you write it out on a piece of paper to yourself, you tell a friend about it. I think it's really important. And knowing, like she said, the people that you look up to the most, because I've had conversations with people I looked up to and I was like freaking out about.
Yeah, I think that's
they all have.
When you can get somebody on, this is the beauty of the podcast sometimes as well, because even sitting with you, I'm like, okay, she's human.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
we get
Exactly.
to be human. And so even like, yeah, people will show up and I'm like, oh, I'm like nervous to interview this person. Or they're like, you know, they're an expert in some scientific practice and maybe show up more stoically. And they're like, oh my God, they don't do anything wrong. And you know innately, like, you know in your brain, of course, they're imperfect human beings, but just really having that understanding that everyone is going through this in some way or another.
sure.
And it's like the woman who came to the gym and said, I know not everything is right now, or whatever she said is like an example of that. And then recently, I was talking to you before we pressed record a bit about like the IFS work I've been doing. And recently somebody said to me, when the negative thoughts arrive, so my mentor said, when the negative thoughts arrive and come into the landscape of your mind where you're saying, you know, what is this thing that I'm thinking, or what negative thought am I curating? What happens if you said, what if, like, here's what I'm afraid of? And then ask yourself the question, what if the opposite is true?
Ooh,
And I feel like
powerful.
that's juicy.
Yes.
Because then you have I initially will have the resistance of being like, well, the opposite can't be true because that would mean I'm amazing.
I know what I mean. But then you're like,
Or maybe I could be, you know, or just so that's a really like such an interesting way to frame it. And then also to sort of like, you have to face that. You have to face that question, right?
That's
so
a really
I love the process.
I'm doing therapy right now with IFS too.
Yeah.
I was so resistant to it at first. I was like, you want me to go inside? Like, I was like, you want me to picture my younger self? I'm like, the first time I was like, I can't see anything. And then the other day I had it. Oh my God, it was so good. Because I didn't want to do it. I was on a therapy call and I was like, can we just talk? And she's like, no. She's like, I really
not
think
talk therapy.
She's like, I really think that like we need to go in, because she could tell like my anxiety in my voice and everything. She's like, we need to go in and figure out, like, talk to this part of you.
Yeah.
And she had me lay down. I'm like annoyed that she's like making me go inside or whatever. And I closed my eyes and she's trying to get me in there. And I literally like, I couldn't see anything. I'm like, nothing's coming up. I'm like, again, why are we doing this? Like, whatever. And she's like, all right, well, that's probably because this part of you doesn't want you to go in there, like, because it's protecting it. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then I sat there for a little bit.
There it is again.
Yeah.
There it is.
I'm like, yeah, exactly. Yeah, see, my body's like, I don't want to go in there. And then after a while, all of a sudden, boom, I see a keyboard, like a typewriter, like a type keyboard, and it's just extending, like it's just going. I'm like, I don't know why. I was like, I see a keyboard and I don't know what it means. She's like, okay, cool, let's sit with the keyboard a little more. Let's try to understand it. And then all of a sudden, it zoomed me in to the cubicle of my biochemistry lab.
Wow.
I had like a cubicle where you'd like write all your SOPs and put all the information in, and then you'd go do all the work like in the lab with your lab coat, your goggles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, cool, let's like talk to this part of you, like what age are they, like whatever. And then I realized I was sitting there and I was actually studying for the GRE because I was trying to get my PhD at the time.
Yeah.
I could not get a good score on this GRE. I could not do it. I was like, I would sit there, I would try so hard and nothing was working. And that feeling, she's like, oh, cool, let's go back to that feeling. And I'm like, this feeling of just like, I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. Like, I don't understand like why, like I feel like I should be pretty smart, but I'm not. And then I realized right away, I'm like, holy shit, that's the same feeling I have right now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness, how powerful is that? So then we were sitting there and we talked to it and we got to know it a little bit more. And I was like, wow, this is the same. That was like way back, like what, like 10 plus years ago? Like that's the same thing that's showing up now in my life. So that's why you need to go back to it. But it was wild. I don't know if you feel the same sometimes with it, but I'm like, I don't want to do it.
As I was telling you, I'm going through the certification so that I can do more work, like an overall neurowired certification, so I can do work in spaces with various different medicines to help people in the IFS space, so that I'm actually asking all the questions and doing the IFS work with them as parts work. And in order to do that, I'm resistant. And at the same time, I'm also like, you don't get to do that until you walk your talk, which means I get to unpack all the parts that are like my protectors, the firefighters, all of the things that are happening in my system. And many of them are not easy, because many of them, and the way that I start to talk about it with the clients I'm beginning this work with now is like, what is the shadow side of this part and what is the superpower? Because we forget that there's a superpower. Sometimes like in IFS, it feels like, well, there's that part showing up again. And it's like, cool, what's the superpower? Like, it got you to train every day for 2 hours a day, or it got you a specific part of you that's like drive and dedication. Its superpower is it got you as far along the path that you are in fitness or, in physical well-being. And also its negative side could be that it's like always driven and it's never giving you space or peace, or so like embracing all of the sides of it. And so like that work, I think it's pretty profound, and it's been profound for me. And also I have a lot of resistance. And then the other part of me is like, you need to shut up and do the work, because like this is how you as I grow my own vessel into understanding all the shit that comes along with being Kristin Weitzel or Angela Gargano, as we grow our own vessel, we get to go out and then we can navigate
For
other
sure.
people better and just be in presence, because I don't want to be bringing, my Move Out Sally is one of the names I gave to a part. I don't want to bring Move Out Sally to a middle of a session with someone. And I don't want to bring Move Out Sally to certain areas of my life that I want to have like more tenderness or less like, yeah, that's very much like stands with a fist. Like I'm going to go do the thing I have to do without being emotionally connected.
For sure.
I don't want to bring that to every part of my life. Right. Now
Yeah.
I'll know about one of my parts.
No, great. No, we love it. Right. And I think it was really helpful to me in that therapy session too, but she's like, okay, that's the part of you who was like really stressed out, but like also at that same exact time, what was some positive things that she was doing?
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, well, like in the lab, like put the lab coat and goggles on me. I'll make anything. I don't know. I was like a compound queen. I was like, let me just cook this thing up. Like so good at that.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, wouldn't it have been interesting is during that time, because I ignored the stuff that I could do really well as that part then.
Yeah.
And I was just like, the one that I can't do. And she's like, well, maybe you weren't supposed to even do that. And I was like, you're right. I wasn't supposed to do it because I wasn't supposed to go get my PhD.
Yeah. You're like, look at me now.
Mm-hmm. But I felt the same sense of that with the pull-up program and the sales engine for that. I just was pulling my hair out. I'm like, I'm behind the computer for hours a day. I can't get it to like fully fire up the way I want to. But then it's like coming back to it, well, maybe that's not your zone of genius. And that's not what you're supposed to be doing. I'm like, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm literally not supposed to be doing that. And that's why I have that same feeling again. So it allows you to recognize, oh, cool, this feeling just came up again. Okay, maybe I need to, like you said, give it some space. What am I good at? Like, let me focus on that instead. And knowing that we're all good at different things. You don't need to be great at it all.
What are a couple lessons that you learned from discovering your gifts, your zone of genius even, that you think are translatable or transferable to people who are listening, who are like stuck in a rut or frustrated or feeling like I can't figure out my gifts, or maybe they're stuck behind a computer, or maybe they're just in transition in a place that they're dealing with like sadness or grief, or I don't know what I'm going to really do for work. What's my next career? I think there's a lot of things to unpack there, but just that stuckness energy, I think we all can relate.
For
like
sure.
The unknown of I don't know what's coming next meets I know I have a gift in here that I really want to share and I'm only 60% there.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me right now is allowing, again, you think that you need to do more, but give it the space that you need. Like sometimes you just need to give it some space. You're not gonna be able to picture the highest version of yourself, get unstuck, get to the next piece when you're sitting in it. Like you gotta like get out of it somehow, which means like go do something that you enjoy. And I think what I noticed when I'm coming out of this personally right now, after being so stuck in my business mind, is I actually forgot some of the things that I like to do. Like people were asking me like, oh, what's your favorite music? What do you like? And I was like, what do I like? I was lost by it. So going back and being like, okay, what do I like? Go live a little. And I bet you the answers are going to come faster than if you were going to just stay in your room and hide from everything.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so I feel like that is something that's really been helping me transition and get really like truly unstuck. Has been like, okay, cool, let's go for a walk, let's go in nature, let's get present back to where I am right now, remind myself of who I am, that's besides any of that stuff that you're talking about, like is you aren't your job, you aren't like you're a mom, you're an athlete, like you're much more than that. So I think to get unstuck, like just really giving it the space that it needs.
Yeah. And I love this, like finding the things that make you feel joyful.
Yeah, I was like, how did I forget? Like, people are like, what's your favorite music? I'm like, I don't know.
Happens.
Then I'm in the car the other day. Well, my car, there was a whole car situation happening the other day, but I'm sitting in there and like Sugar Ray came on. I was like, oh, I remember Sugar Ray. I'm like, dance.
This brings me a little dash of joy.
Yeah, I was like, okay. I was like, all right, well, good thing my car broke down. So I was sitting in it, listening to Sugar Ray. You know what I mean? You start to realize these different moments that like maybe you forgot before.
Yeah. I made a list in November last year. It was like 10 things that bring me joy, and I had a really hard time making that list. And I was like, okay. So work, where's my creativity? What kind of, like when was the last time I went to go see a movie? Like even on my own, or take myself to dinner?
For sure. And it's wild because I think that like, the world glamorizes entrepreneurship, and I'm so grateful that I'm an entrepreneur, but they also maybe don't talk about some of this stuff where you can like truly lose yourself.
Yeah.
Like in it.
Yeah.
Especially when you're
100-hour a week. And yeah.
I'm not saying like, everyone has like what their different things, but like sometimes that like, so I breathe about like, maybe it'd be nice to have corporate because you're just 9 to 5. And I remember after that, like I was off. Like I just like didn't look at my phone for that job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when it comes to entrepreneurship, it's so on all the time. It becomes your personality, maybe who you think you are, but it's like, you're more than that. So
Yeah. And we're lucky because we get to work in these arenas where we love what we do. And that also is like, can also be like death by a thousand cuts. Because you're like, cool, I have another thing. This person needs to be.
I love it.
So,
but now it's my job, but now it's less fun because I have to try and make money with it. And you're like, bah, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I want people to listen into this and then to like contact you to get you on their stages, because it's so important for you to share your message. And I just love the times that I see you speak to people and how you share, like how just you're practical and also you really show up as yourself. And I think that there's sometimes like a construct or facade that people have is like overlay. I just want to say that to you out loud, where it's like you don't, like some of the video courses and the things that I've been on in around you, like I'm like, oh, she's there with her dog, she's like hanging out doing her thing, like side ponytail, like I'm in it, like fuck off, we're in this together. And there's like, it's so refreshing to just see that and then see how practiced you are and how like you're rehearsing and showing up in the appropriate situations and the appropriate attire with the person that you are, but you're still like Angela. You're still like, hey, I'm here, I'm showing up, and I want you to be, moving through this either with me or like, I'm going to give you this story and it's actually a life lesson. And it doesn't mean that you're not smarter than me, because you might be, but there's a nugget in here. And I really want you to be able to swallow it whole or swallow it in pieces, but to really be able to get it. So I love that you show up like that. I want you to know that you show up like that.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's so important. I always end the show with a couple questions. So I want to get the answers from you for these questions, which are outside of the world of like mindset and all the things that you're doing in fitness. Do you have like a favorite biohack that you're doing right now?
Ooh, a favorite biohack. It's so funny because I feel like I got a little biohacked out for a little while.
I know. It's like, it's getting to be a thing.
Sometimes it was getting to be like a little much. I'm trying to think of my favorite thing right now.
It doesn't have to be a $40,000 piece of technology that you get on or whatever, but just that you're doing from.
I don't know if this is biohacking, but I have my phone set to grayscale.
Oh, okay. Talk
more about biohacking.
Explain it. So
I put my phone on a grayscale because it like hits the dopamine a little bit less, because I definitely have ADHD, which I'm working on right now. And there's something about that. It makes me scroll less. It makes me stay off my phone more, be more present. And it's just by not turning it into red, turning it into black and white.
Yeah,
for the entire day.
Settings and
and then you can always like turn it off if you need to. Like for like when I make content, I can turn it off. But there was something about it when it's in black and white that I literally forgot about it the other day. I don't know if you were there for this, but I forgot we need our phones to get into our apartments, and I forgot it in the apartment, and I was like, oh my god, like I'm clearly not addicted to it anymore, because I would always be like, where's my phone? And I literally just forgot about it. I just did that today
like
for the first time.
And then like go take a walk. And you don't get more than 2 hours. You get 2 hours to fit it in, or you have to take it.
I have my little timer in my backpack now, a little Pomodoro timer. I did that today for the first time in a while. Like I'm like, Angela, you've been ADHDing. Like I'll just be like in like 10 different tasks. I'm like, you need to get stuff done today.
Great. So those are like definitely biohacks.
Okay, cool. Biohacks. Okay, cool. Yeah, no red light, nothing crazy. I'm just
it doesn't be technology. I know we always think that, but like, that's so smart. What it like calming the dopaminergic response to mine is that.
I'm definitely addicted to dopamine. And I think that also that might have came from, since I was an athlete so much and I'm not doing as much athletic stuff. Like I think my body's a little confused right now. So it's like, what can I get addicted to now?
Feels great.
Like, yeah, exactly.
I like that too. Intensity. Welcome to our lives. And then the second question I always ask is, if you could go back and have a conversation with Angela and her 15-year-old self, and you were like, Angela, what's up? So like prefrontal cortex is already developed, kind of in that teenage cranky years. Well, for me, that was 15 cranky years. Like, what would you go back and say to her, that if you were going to give her one message that was like, this is how you will keep yourself well or healthy or just feeling like a good human, and it will serve the rest of your life?
For sure. I mean, this is probably deep, but I feel like I would tell her like, you're enough, because I feel like always growing up, I never thought I was enough with like anything I did. And then I would get made fun of so much for the things that I felt really I internally felt proud of. Like for gymnastics, I have these like nice strong arms, and guys would be like, you look like a man, da da da. And almost been like, you're enough. Like that's going to be your superpower. Like keep leaning into it instead of like caring what anybody else thinks. If I could tell her like, don't like screw what anyone thinks. like that's your superpower. Like you're going to do such awesome things. I mean, I don't think she would have ever, I don't know. I think she, in the back of her head, I was very like imaginative, like, I don't know, creative type of person. I think I always in my head was like, I'm going to be famous, or I'm going to do something. I didn't know what it was.
You were a big dreamer.
I was a huge dreamer. Yeah. Like I would definitely be like, I always thought I was going to be a rock star, but I tried all the instruments and couldn't do it. So I always had this like big dream in my head. It's like, so maybe I'd also tell her like, keep dreaming big, because why not? Like, why can't you do that? You know, instead of all those people who were like, no, like, I'm not gonna be able to do that. I'm like, well, why not? Like, what if it all goes right? It's already going right.
Amazing. It is already happening for you. Thank you so much for spending time with me today and chatting about your life and how the mindset thing